Good morning, West USA. Welcome to another edition of our Monday morning webinar. We got a packed show for you today. Appreciate everybody joining us today. So let's get rocking and rolling. A little sneak peek of what we got coming up today. Of course, we've got Todd Menard here to give us a look at the number. Bookspan Baker team, Matt Baker here to give us our mortgage minute. I'm going to talk about 3 important questions to ask about your business plan. It's pretty interesting stuff. Good. And then we've got Matt Conterelli from AAR here. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff that impacts you, impacts your business, and impacts your clients when it comes down to government affairs and things like that.
And this isn't an animal discussion, right? So cat, it would be chat, right? Just typo.
It depends. All right. Anyways, thanks for that. You know, I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you for catching that. Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you, Todd, for pointing out someone else's mistakes on the webinar.
Well, I sent them to Nick this morning to prove. All right. As always, if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at webinar@westusa.com. All right. A couple announcements to go over real quickly. Dean Becker in person in the Mesa office coming up tomorrow at 9 a.m. for 3 hours of Commissioner Standard CE hours. So get signed up for that. As always, all you have to do is just go on your dashboard and register for any of these events. But if you're looking for some CE classes or you just wake up tomorrow and you want to heckle someone, show up to Dean's CE class tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Mesa office. All right, we got the Goodyear office meeting coming up in person. That's tomorrow as well from 10 to 11. And we've got Hope's going to be there, and she's going to be going over how to use Canva. I love Canva. Canva is one of my favorite softwares when it comes down to making your own flyers, slides, and memes and things like that. So join Hope and the rest of the Goodyear office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. On Wednesday, we got our Chandler office meeting. Dean's back. And that is going to be in person and Facebook Live as well. They are also doing their back to school supply drive. So it is never too early to get in there, get into Walmart, Target, whatever the case is, and buy some supplies for those kids that need it most. And then we have Ari, I guess, from Richmond American Homes. So that's always going to be an interesting subject right now. I'd love to talk to a lot of builders right now.
Builders are back. They want us. They want realtors back. They're paying commissions again.
Imagine that. Imagine that. But I've got a memory like an elephant. So anyways, that is this Wednesday at the Chandler office. And then Todd's got a CE class virtual, mastering the AAR listing contract. This is coming up Wednesday from 9 to 12. This is, again, virtual, but you get 3 hours of contract law. And Nick, you wanted to talk about, or wanted us to kind of get into this. We got our big golf tournament, Carlos Cicero's golf tournament coming up, and the silent auction.
Yeah, so today is the last day to bid on the silent auction baskets. We have 2 really fun baskets that you can bid on. In the baskets above the wine and the whiskey lovers stuff that's in there, you can also win a twosome or a cart to play at the Cicero golf tournament this coming Saturday. The other cart that you're going to be playing with are 2 members of the corporate staff. So not only do you get to play golf, you get to also play with some of our staff members. So that's to be a lot of fun. The bidding went pretty hot this weekend, so you can get in still. Like I said, today is the last day. It's not too high, so you can get a pretty awesome basket and to play at Lone Tree. This weekend's going to be pretty nice. It'll be super early in the morning. But the main point of this is you're giving to a fantastic cause. Carlos Cicero and his group do an amazing job every year raising funds for multiple nonprofits. So this is a great way for you guys all to give back. So on the flyer, there is no info. Oh yeah, visit caresgolf.givesmart.com. I'll put that in the chat so everybody can hit that this morning, but we want to try to get as much as we can for Carlos and the nonprofits that he's working with this year.
Carlos does a great job out there. Yeah. All right. Appreciate that. And as always, every Monday afternoon from 2 to 2:30, don't do that with Bob Stevens, where he will take you through all the stuff that you put him through over the weekend. So always a good time. All right, Todd, take it away. What's going on in the market.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Today, we're going over the Greater Phoenix Metropolitan Housing Statistics for the week ending June 13th and the week prior. Let's get right into our numbers. Today, 27 days closed on market, 0.72 months supply. We have an absorption rate about 140%. Our average list price is at $787, average sale price at $597, and our list price to sale price retention took a little bit of a tick up to 100.52. Taking a look at inventory across the board, yes, that's not a mistake. We're up an additional 10% again to 12,241 listings. We have 4,403 pending, and we have 2,843 month to date. Looking at the new listings as far as days on market, but this past week we took very, very important. Look at that, 2,700 plus listings. Now, we've been talking about this for decades. 2,400 is the Phoenix magical number. If you're under 2,400 listings, we're depleting inventory. If you're over 2,500, you're adding to the inventory. So this is another significant reason why. And the days on market activity for the entire MLS as a whole is 57.6. Days on market closed at 27. So let's take a look at the price ranges again. Under 500,000 is representing 44.87% of the entire inventory, running an average of 39 days on market. And of course, you can look in there and look to the left and see the price ranges, the number of units within those price ranges, and the days on market for that specific price range. So this is a great tool to use when you're working with buyers and or sellers to help them see the marketplace. Obviously, 500 to a million is sitting at 41.2. This is the part that's doubled. This used to be 18, 20%. Now we're at 41. Again, prices that were in the 400s are now in the 500s, if not even 6s. So the inventory is continuing to migrate from the under 500,000 into the 500 to $1 million category. And of course, our $1 million up category is 13.9% of the market. So taking a look at the spreadsheet, and this is really what helps everybody understand and become an expert, if you would. What makes somebody an expert? The ability to compare two sets of numbers. So in the very center of the column, we have 2019 SW representing the same week for 2019. Just to the left of that in salmon, we have 2021. And to the left of that, we have two white columns. We have this past week and the week prior to compare. So again, we thought 2,584 listings was great a week ago. We're at 2,714. That's up, obviously. But the important part here is not just week over week. Look at 2019. This was a banner year prior to any disruption. 2,183 is the number of listings we took during the COVID, during the 2021 market. We took as many as 2,465, so 75. So we are well ahead in this particular category. Inventory, of course, was 11.3 last week. It's now 12.2. A year ago, it was only 6,400. So when you're out there, I've been saying this. We've never been, and we're still not in an inventory crisis. 66, we're doubling our inventory. 3 years ago, 2019, look at how close we are. 16,659 back in 2019. We are on the precipice of having more inventory and having the market be returning more to not necessarily a normalcy. What's that? But the ebb and flow and the algorithms, the percentages of people moving into Phoenix and the percentages of that to the rooftops, the percentages of new home construction, the percentages of resale activity is all now starting to float back into within normal percentages. So 12,241, that's what we have right now. 875 of those, is that what? Yeah, it's a little distance away here. 875 of those are coming soon. 10,000, over 10,000 single family detached, 1,294 new home construction in the MLS, and a total of 12,214 non-distressed properties. Taking a look at the distressed properties, again, less than 0.5% of the entire MLS. Pending, we look at pending as a meeting of the minds. How many, it's in escrow, but how many people are actually engaging? How many sellers are actually engaging? We looked way up on the top, new listings, 2,754 sellers put their houses on the market this past week. They are not worried about where they're going. So get that out of your head. 4,408 people are in contract right now. That's good, because last week at 4,159, we talked about how far off it was from last year. And so if you slide your eyes to the right, you've got to have people in the marketplace. And we are moving back into that market. Remember, it's during the summers when the kids are out of school that Arizona does the greatest number of transactions. So 6,298 was 3 years ago, 5,587. So we still are a little low. A better number would be hovering right around 5,000. That would be the number we'd be looking to see. Closed inventory, it's mid-month. It's still a little early, but what we're watching is how are we competing with what it took place last year. So 3,900 listings last year, closed 2,400. Again, we're talking about 20%, 18%. Slide your eyes way over the right in the blue column. We finished, if you remember, with about a 8% less production than we did a year ago last month, and about the same for the last 7 months. We've been doing fewer sales as the market is flattening out and cooling off. 0.72 months supply. Yeah, last week was unfortunately an anomaly. That 1.6 looked real good, but yeah, 0.72 keeps us in that negotiation. Pricing is kind of leveling off again. 787 for the entire average of the MLS. 597 came down from 633 for the average sale prices that closed. Now, remember, this isn't what's happening as appreciation on the standing homes. This is just taking the sample of what is already closed month to date. What were the averages, and then what were the averages compared to the same period last year? So again, up about $100,000 over last year's numbers, but we'll see how that comes out. We're still expecting to end 2022 at about an 8% appreciation, and then of course 2023 looks like it'll be about a 4%. 58 days on market is relatively simple for active, and 27 for sold. Those are pretty much, slide your eyes all the way across. Those numbers are very, very close. And then finally, 100.52. What's the list price to sale price retention? This is what was the list price at the time the seller accepted the offer. So this is a great thing to see. If it's over 100%, well, first of all, 100% is list price. So 100%, 0.52, you're really 0.52, less than about a half of 1% above the sale price or the list price at that time. However, this is normally 97.8% with about a 2% negotiation. If you slide your eyes to 3 years ago, 97.98, it was a little higher, but it was in that 97. We haven't seen in really under 100, except for a few anomalies over the last couple of years, but it's been averaging somewhere about 101. So when we can sit here and we can look at, we can see it close to 100, and anytime it goes under 100, that's just good business. That's just helping us right along. We're getting enough for the sellers to be happy and enough for the buyer to be happy. Meeting of the minds. You can find us on Alexa Flash Briefings. Just go to Alexa, go to your Flash Briefing settings, and look for West USA Realty Market Analysis. Instagram TV. We're in Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and of course, my favorite is going to YouTube. That way, you get to see not only hear the narrative, but you also get to see the slides. So, thank you. Appreciate it. See you next week.
All right, appreciate it, Todd. All right, Matt, we're going to bring you into the conversation. What's going on in the world of mortgages?
All right, let's get to it. Inflation wasn't our friend on Friday, as you probably expected, with looking at your own expenses. But rates ticked up as a result, and today is no different. Friday and both today, rates are going to be worse. The hard thing is, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, is that when you do have lots of volatility in the interest rate market, it impacts down payment assistance probably the most. So down payment assistance just is not available when there's volatility. If you remember, and I've said this before, the way down payment assistance works is in exchange for that higher interest rate, this grant money, that's how the grant money gets funded. And so when there's volatility in the interest rates, then they can't count on that money being there to grant, therefore they can't offer it. So that's why you'll see a lot of lenders out there just saying they're just not available anymore. It's really the volatility. And until that settles, that just won't be around. But if I get into the conversation of where I'm going today, it's really about the lower down buyers, lower down payment buyers. And hopefully now's their time, right? As the market ebbs back in. I mean, that's where we've had buyers after buyers, instead of agents saying, Matt, how much appraisal gap can I offer? How much more can I go over? How much negotiation room do I have? Now I'm getting, down payment assistance options are they there or not? But more particularly is do I have a low down? Can I go FHA? Can I go 3% down conventional? What can I do? Well, let's talk about that real quick. Conventional 3%. Here's the basics. Most people think you have to be a first-time home buyer for 3% down. Well, that is true. To do the lower down stuff, you do need to be a first-time home buyer. And then, of course, there are no income restrictions, but you do have to have, and remember, AUS is an automated underwriting system. That's that DULP. That means you have to have that. And again, 50% your max DTI, and homebuyer education is required, which makes sense. If you're a first-time homebuyer and you're putting less than 5% down, you probably want to go through some education. And again, that is where, now again, remember, even though you can go down to a 620 credit score, getting an approval through the automated system with a 620 credit score may be a little bit more challenging. But let's talk about the next one. That's obviously your 5% options. You don't need home buyer education, and you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So that's really where the sweet spot is for 5%. I have people that are selling houses, have equity, but they still don't want to max out and put more than they like the idea of putting limited down for and investing and doing other things with it. So 5% down is an option. But then let's talk about this home ready, home possible option. Most don't talk about this, but this is a conventional option. You can do 3% down that you don't have to be a first-time home buyer, but you have income restrictions. So that's the sort of the caveat there. You do have home buyer education as well, and it just recently went up. So it's probably a good time to talk about it. Maricopa Pinal used to be just till a couple weeks ago, till they recalibrated for the new year. It was like 66,000. Now it's up to 71,000 income restriction. That's your gross income. So, again, that could help some folks. And of course, you also then can qualify for this reduced MI coverage, which helps your payment. So that's a good option for the 3% down that's non-first time home buyer. And then of course you have the FHA, and the FHA is going to be the most flexible, no home buyer education, but allows you to go as high as like 50. I mean, we get 57% debt to income ratio approvals on AUS, which is really helpful. And again, you can do the little bit lower credit score, and FHA is not as credit score sensitive. So it does, it can be better when you have lower scores to go FHA, because then you don't have the hit for the rate and the MI, because MI is just set on FHA regardless of credit score. And then the last one is, now there is one program, the down payment assistance. It's called Chenoa, that is available. The difference between Chenoa and some of the other down payment assistance programs are that there's a forgivable timeline on the assistance on that grant, 3 years to 7 years, depending on the program. Where Chenoa, it doesn't matter. You have a repayment. You do repay that second. There's no forgivable feature. But again, if you look at some of these options, I mean, it does open up. Again, it's FHA only. So, I think the hardest part right now is the condo. It's like when you're looking in that, these are the price points between 200 and 300, and what are available right now between 200 and 300, you're probably going to be those condos, and those are hard to get FHA approval on. Or if they don't have FHA approval, you really just can't even go there. But again, there's this interest rates, relatively good on the second mortgage. I mean, it is repayable, but it's a great option right now for those people that need it, and that don't have the down payment assistance options, the other down payment assistance options available. So that's what I got for the day. Hopefully that helps. And again, if you have questions on lower down or down payment assistance, I think a lot of lenders are just putting up the white flag, like, no, we don't do it. And I'm sort of saying, no, let's get ready for maybe when that comes back. But we need to have the right conversation, the right education about why and what's to come, and set the right expectations on some of those lower down payment assistance types options. So that's what I got.
All right. Appreciate it, Matt. Good stuff.
Awesome.
As
Thanks,
always. Matt. All right. So moving right along. So we talk every year, Todd. We talk about business plans, right? And yet, I talk to so many agents out there. So, I came up with a list, and we can only hit 3 of them today of questions that we should, or considerations that we really need to be, putting into our business plan. So the first one is, are you building a scalable business as opposed to just short-term thinking? And I think for a lot of us, we get caught up in that short-term thinking. We're looking just to put food on the table sometimes, or we don't come to the industry with a business acumen, and we say it all the time. As a real estate agent, you're a real estate entrepreneur. You're running your own business, and all the things that anyone else does to run a business, you're doing the same thing. So first of all, so it does start. Do you have a business plan? And if you do have a business plan, how far out does your business plan go? How far out do your goals go? Because, I'm a reverse engineer type of guy. I like to say, this is where I want to be in 10, 15, 20 years. And then I can start now working backwards and figuring out all the things that I need to do to get there. And then I can divide that, break that down, and break it down to the now, saying, okay, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do next week in order to get there? And do you know what needs to take place in order to grow your
That's a good
business?
question. Yep. Are you volleying over?
How long have we been doing this?
Yeah,
Now,
I
when I'm
know.
done talking, and then it's
Well,
your
yeah,
turn
but
to talk.
you had one more, so that's why I usually wait until you get to your last
Well,
talking point
because I
before
wanted
I
to
jump
throw that
in.
in there after your
Yeah, all right,
comments.
okay. So yeah, this particular part, it needs to take place. Yeah, I need to respond to Mike quicker. No, but no. Here's the thing: reverse engineering is brilliant. I can tell you, as you age. And there's going to come a time when you continually think that you're 25, and then there'll come a time you'll continually think you're 35, even though you're 50. And then you'll think you're probably 50 when you're 60 or 62. And then all of a sudden the OS happens, and you say, I'm not sure I have enough money to survive after retirement. So the reverse engineering thing is really, really important, because by the time the stereotypical person's mind says, oh, I have to start worrying about this, it's too late. So reverse engineering that back. So I really like that, Mike, because if you do it in a short period of time, you have to significantly sacrifice. But if you do it in little pieces over time, you hardly feel it. And that is the biggest difference between the two. And of course, we all know real estate is there. How far out does your business plan grow? Do you have the business plan? Love those concepts. The biggest thing is that we think that we need to make a 1-year business plan, or somebody says, where do you want to be 3 years or 5 years from today? Mike, where do you want to live when you retire? Approximately what type of, if you dreamt or dream and you say, hey, I want to be in a 2,400 square foot cabin with a fieldstone fireplace, 350 feet from a running brook or stream that leads into some kind of lake nearby, you've got to be able to picture it. What's the weather like? Can you smell the pines? Can you, and the moment you connect your senses to your vision, that's when you are willing to have the passion that it takes to make that happen.
Yeah, and I want to throw in this other one. How strong is your team around you? Because I know just looking at that, you may not know what I'm talking about. I find it amazing of how our agents, not our agents, just agents in general, treat their lenders, treat their title reps, treat their home inspectors. Of this maybe an entitlement mentality that they're here to serve me, and so forth. If you want to scale, you have to have a team around you. And that's what I mean by your team around you. And you have to have the right people, and there has to be a give and take, and so forth, because and for me, the people that we surround ourselves around with are people that we want to emulate. They're big teams, and they've done things, and they can grow with us, because nothing's worse than you finally experience some growth and then you've outgrown your team around you.
I got one piece on that, Mike, because that's probably one of the biggest mistakes agents make. But you got to hear the whole comment, which is, okay, I'm a realtor, so what do? I'm taught to find another realtor in the office that's doing the kind of production I want to do. So if they're doing, I'm zero and I want to do 2 million. So I go find a $2 million producer and I learn what they do. I listen to them, I watch them, and not just one, but many of them. Then when it comes time for me to I'm at or almost at the 2 million, and now I've got my eyes on a $4 million prize. The problem is I then seek out a $4 million producer, and here's what happens. All your systems have to change. But if you started off your business plan planning on building an $80 million business,
that's such a great segue.
Building an $80 million business, then that's a straight line to success. And every time you can still get answers and help from people, but every single time you go to that, you've achieved one obstacle or milestone, you're going to the next one, you don't have to retool.
All right. So, because that's going to really kind of get into our third point, but what I think one of the other things that are missing from our business plans are unclear financial expectations. We get into this and we don't know. We don't know, realistically how much we can make. We don't realistically know how hard it is. We don't realistically have enough money in savings. We don't, we just don't know. And it's part of your business plan, but the first question is do you have a budget? I do not know any business owner. I know a lot of restaurant owners, and stop laughing, Nick. So I might have what you call a slight weight problem. But I don't know anyone in any other industry that has a business that doesn't have a budget, doesn't know how much money has to come in the door. And sometimes in our business we don't know. We just haven't broken that down. Maybe we don't have those conversations with our spouses or whatever the case is, and then now we're looking at a little bit of a slowdown from everybody I'm talking to. Everybody's off about 25%. Do you have enough savings? Have you been saving? A lot of us had some great last couple of years. Do you have any savings? And then are you following the market and predictions for the market? We talk about that all the time, because it all comes into, my partner and I, we're constantly like, what do we think is going to happen? Where's the market going? Because that adjusts our budget. That we're making changes today that we don't necessarily need to make today, but we are anticipating certain things happening. So let's just make those changes now.
That's so true. So, if most people react, they are, and by being a reactive mentality, you are a victim of all of your surroundings. You're a victim of when the listing agent puts a smaller commission under the cooperating broker compensation field. You're allowing that agent to interfere with your business plan for the year. You should be using a buyer broker exclusive employment agreement with every single buyer. That at least establishes what you're interested in earning, and it helps you maintain your business plan from that perspective. But again, the biggest thing that I see is that people adjust to the market. They don't, meaning that if the market's slow, they're slow. If the market's high, they're high. And the point that I think, Mike, we're trying to get to people today is that you establish where you want to be, and then the strategy is not retooling for slower compensation or slower volume. The strategy is, what do I need to do now to be able to maintain that income, to have that availability, to have those expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third one then comes back to what you were saying. I think a lot of, I know, one of the missing components in most people's business plans are documented systems, procedures, and I love the term protocols. We preach on our team, every real estate event that happens should initiate some sort of system. I think I shared it last week, but I was talking with a fellow comrade of mine who works central Washington, northern Oregon area. She did herself over 200 transactions last year. And I always ask the question, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice. And she said, create the systems now. Like you're saying, you want to be an $80 million producer. What do those systems look like? But when you have systems, it generates consistency, ensures no one falls through the cracks. You go into a Subway, or you go to Chipotle. There's a system to everything, and everything is consistent, and that's where our business needs to be. And so I included some examples. If you're going to do an open house, what system engages? From start to finish. You get a new lead. What happens when you have a new lead? Do you have a checklist of automatic things that happen? Automatic things such as your mobile app that you send them, or whatever the case is. When you're going on a listing appointment, what system engages so that every listing appointment has everything, and is the same, so you don't miss anything. And of course, my favorite is, the after the close system. I think that's, I'll preach that to the day I die. What happens when you hand the keys to somebody? How do you continue to build those referrals? And, and so my advice for people is take out a whiteboard and start writing out every single real estate activity that needs and requires a system, and start building it out.
I think the worst word in our real estate agents' vocabulary is when somebody says, do you track your numbers? And the fact is I think track means, oh my gosh, I've got to be too analytical. No, it doesn't. You might have to have somebody on your team who can help, add all those numbers together. But no, you need to track, because if I said to you, of the 6, how many different lead generation activities do you do? Oh, I do 5. or you get the person who really doesn't do anything. They go, oh, I do 10. No, but of the 5, my question is, which one provides you with the highest return? Which one provides you with the highest average sale dollar? But wait a minute, maybe not. That's not the only important thing. Which one provides you with the most individual consumer return? So you have to track these things, not because you want to be analytical, because here's the thing. When times do get tough, which they always do, you need to know which ones you're going to be able to rely on to carry you through that tough time.
Yeah, and I've told the story in the past, and it's a great point. It was last year, I think it was. I was doing a training class for our Scottsdale office on cause marketing, and I'm driving over there, and I go, okay, so that was, I don't even know what year we're in. So I said, okay, 2020. I started going in my head, how many closings resulted from my cause marketing? And it was staggering. It was, I think I closed, 13 just on cause marketing alone, which then I'm like, okay, why am I not double downing on this? Because I hadn't really been tracking, to your point, hadn't really, kept up with it. So good point.
Well, real quick, Mindy talked about it last week too, is when she walks to the offices and she has conversations with agents, something that she asks them is, where's your business coming from? What is causing your business to move or go down right now? And if you can't answer those questions, if you can't look back at the last 6 closings and have the answer in your head quickly, where did those closings come from? You need to reassess what you're doing. It's just that easy.
Because you can't fix what you don't know.
All righty. Well, enough of me. Let's talk more about me. All right. We are excited to have Matthew or Matt? Or does it matter?
Matt, please.
Matt. Okay. Matt Conterelli from the Arizona Realtors Association. He is you're basically the director of government affairs, and I'll let you kind of get into that a little bit more. But I wanted to address just right off the top. I think right away when people hear government affairs, they think politics and we're going to start throwing things at each other and so forth. It couldn't be further from the truth. You are our voice, and you are the one that helps protect all of us as agents and our people that we work with that own homes. We're going to get into RAPAC in a little bit, but kind of go into, I just think, especially for so many new agents, they just get mad every year because I got to pay these dues. Sure. And they don't really have a perception of all the great things that those dues go towards. So tell us a little bit about what you do and your role.
Sure. Well, I love this format because following the business plan, you got to have an agenda. You've got to have a plan in place of how you're going to, lead as the state's largest trade association. We have over 57,000 members to date, and those dues dollars, they go to a lot of things: professional standards, risk management, broker hotline, and stuff like that. But our advocacy is so important, and I oversee our lobbying. I oversee our everything at the statewide. I manage relationships with our local associations that are doing great work at the local level with our municipalities, as well as the National Association doing great work at the federal. But balancing all of those relationships and putting a plan in place to make sure that we have the best environment politically and from a policy standpoint. I always say we're about policy, not politics. It's just the icky business that we're pushed into. But we have phenomenal champions down at the state legislature. We have good relationships with state agencies, and it's sometimes hard to get people interested because our environment's so good. They don't realize what some of these states have passed, and look next door. I'm a native Californian, and it's just crazy that the barriers.
I have a support group that I lead. I'm from Southern California too.
Yeah, instead of AA, it's CA, right? California Autonomous.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I do a lot in the short-term rental world.
Yep.
And what Hawaii is trying to do is, what they're trying to do to impact property rights in a negative way is absolutely staggering. So you talked about how good we have it. Had we not had it so good, And had we not really had strong representation and strong leadership, what are some scenarios we could be facing right now?
Well, let's take, Sedona is facing some challenges right now. Obviously, they've got limited opportunity to growth because of geographic reasons, the current market and stuff like that. But we had a bill 1168 this year where the League of Cities and Towns really wanted to implement a cap on how many short-term rentals could be in a town. And, by and large, we stay out of the regulatory side of the short-term rental fight. We're about private property rights, home ownership, balanced regulation, licensure, and a whole host of other issues. But this cap issue is really challenging because you can't tell me that if I have a license, but my neighbor doesn't, and I want to sell my house, now with that scarcity of that license, you're creating a disparity within the home values, all because of a local regulation. And the cities and towns couldn't tell me anything about the program. They couldn't tell me, okay, what's the lifespan of it? Does it stay with the owner? Does it stay with the house? What's the waiting list look like? And so when it gets to those private property rights and who can do what with their property, I understand these short-term rentals can create challenges in neighborhoods. It can change how the neighborhoods operate and how folks get along and stuff like that. But let's be cautious not to give too much power back to the government and keep the control within that property line. Let's help the local communities figure out these issues. There's two basic sects of the short-term rental fight, and it has to do with inventory and nuisance. We worked with them on the other parts of the bill that really laid out a good plan to cut down some of the nuisance issues, even to the point where there was a 12-month freeze on the license. If your customers are really acting up, you're not being a good operator, you're not being a good steward in that community. All right, that's really not our fight. We're neutral on that. We want to see this industry, which is in its infancy, which allows a lot of families to get out of town and find affordable options. Some folks can't afford to stay at the hotels in Sedona. And so we want to be cautious at, okay, what is a current problem and what is the long-term solution? Because that is what we're facing on almost every sector right now.
Yeah, Mike, you maybe remember back, and obviously I know you do, Matt, the transfer tax. If you guys if AAR had not spearheaded the issue regarding transfer tax, our private property rights, we would all be subject to anywhere from a 3.5% to a 7% cost of sale, that a tax that would be paid to the government, to the local municipality, if we had not rallied together and stepped in. So I think it's really important. The other piece that I wanted to bring up, so that was one item, Mike, that if they weren't available, if they hadn't taken action, that would have happened. And again, we thought we had it put to bed, and then a couple of years later, it popped back up. And we needed to make sure that it would never pop up again. So you guys took on, again, another effort to change the Constitution of the state of Arizona to prevent that from ever. You'd have to have 2/3 of the population go, yeah, tax me, in order for that to ever happen again. So brilliant minds.
Well, we do have people coming from California,
yeah.
so
hopefully they learned their lesson. That's why they're
refugees.
coming. Exactly. But to the point, I also want to make sure we understand. I don't know if you know the breakdown off the top of your head, but when you pay, your $400 or close to $500 to your local MLS for your annual membership, that money is broken up and split up. Some of that money goes to NAR, some of that money goes to AAR, some of the money stays local. I don't know. It used to be like $150, $130. I don't know how much AAR keeps out of that anymore. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you break that down, Mike, and you say, hey, what's my local doing for me for my $87 they get or $120 they get? What's my state doing for the money they get? What's federal? When you look at, you've got the largest trade association, 1.4 million people, you've got them rallying for you to protect homeownership and private property
and I think,
all the
Matt,
time.
to your point, I mean, we've got it good.
Yeah,
we don't, and we don't realize how good we have it. I just sold a house in California. Oh my gosh, I would never want to be an agent there. I mean, or a homeowner there. I mean, we have it really, really good. What are some of the things that might be coming after us where you guys have got your eyes on right now?
Well, I mean, Todd brings up a good point. What the effort he was talking about, changing the Constitution, Prop 126, prohibiting taxation on services. That is so important that we got that in there, because we have a lot of elected officials out there looking at a whole host of tax cuts. Ultimately, we have to, you got to pay the piper. And other folks are starting, is there any way we can get around Prop 126 to tax services? We're already having those conversations to bolster how it sets forth in the Constitution of Arizona, that protection. We've been watching, there was a recent review of a court case on implied warranty for new home construction, and making sure that home builders are stepping up to the minimums, to habitability, making sure that somebody can live in those homes, making sure the quality of construction, or at least the warranty, protects that individual as they purchase those homes. We've also been really engaged with the water conversation and the housing conversation. We had the home builders and other groups bring a bill this year, 2674, setting preemption on by right zoning. And that could create some real challenges. And we have great relationships with the sponsor, Representative Kaiser out of North Phoenix and Representative Cesar Chavez out of Maryvale, both phenomenal legislators from both sides of the aisle. Kaiser, Republican, Chavez, a Democrat, looking to touch the third rail because it is such a controversial issue. But they're just saying, hey, let's address this housing crisis. What do we actually need in Arizona? So we ended up working on the bill, turning it into a study committee. We're going to be at the seat. I'll be representing the realtors on that committee, appointed by the Speaker of the House, making sure that we bring a menu of options, that we're not just there to kill bad ideas, but that we're really providing the data and the solutions, and making sure the members' dollars that they invest in our efforts are going to work. And how do we do that with, our partnership with our regulation? And we're like, during Todd's presentation, we're seeing the market change.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not make short-term reactions for, and as we develop long-term.
So when you say housing crisis,
Yep.
What are you specifically referring to? Because I know for
Sure.
our team, and it's really weird that you brought it up. For the past 2 weeks, my team is just constantly talking about water.
Yep.
And I'm like, I haven't had people ask me about water in years. And then I had a conversation with a guy yesterday talking about how the southeast valley, we've got a power problem.
Yep.
I mean, we could be, if we don't build something, which the Arizona Corporate Commission turned down their
SRP's, yeah.
SRP's proposal. I mean, we could be talking about going California and New York with rolling blackouts in the next couple of years. So when I think of housing crisis, this is the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about.
Well, and that's, housing crisis is such a buzzword, especially in politics right now, because it's something that a lot of people feel they can relate to. But it's anything from, development, smart growth, which includes water and power. How are we growing? Where are we growing? Because, adding density and adding sprawl only goes so far in a state that's in a tier 2 drought. There's a lot of conversations about funding water. The governor's made it a priority. Both the Speaker and the House and the Senate President want to see $1 billion go into bonding. And how do we remanage the rights and water that we do? Because simply moving on from what we did with the drought contingency plan isn't enough. We have to look at new sources, whether that's long-term strategies like desal in Mexico and trading off Colorado River water, innovative ideas that we've seen from countries like Israel. It all plays a part into how we grow. The other key aspects of the housing crisis are affordability. Mm-hmm. Are we continuing to build new houses, condos, apartments that people are already priced out of. And it's not necessarily to the fault of the home builders or the multi-housing association. Material costs are absolutely insane. My dad's a contractor in Southern California still. And it's like, instead of gas prices, we talk about the price of a 10-foot stick of PVC pipe, and it's tripled in price. And all of that plays a part into what that house is ultimately sold for. And
So of all the things that keep me up at night,
yep.
all of that stuff doesn't keep me up at night. It's just I'm not going to be around long enough to have to worry about all that at the rate that I'm going. But it's and I and my partner and I, we had a discussion yesterday about it, whether it's a possibility that a state could step in or the federal government could step in. But it's the amount of hedge funds that are coming in and buying up all these houses that to me are creating an inventory problem to the point where they could really have enough market share to really dictate rents, because rents are out of control right now, and especially more and more
highest in the country.
Yeah, and the more hedge funds that are coming in and buying up these houses, it's going to only get worse. Is there talk about the amount of single family homes a private fund can own, or
a delicate one, but yes, the institutional buyer in a good market is the enemy, and in a bad market, they're a friend, right? Like when they're, but what are we doing to get real Arizonans, whether they're new to the state or have lived here their whole life, into the homes that they want and can afford? That is a big conversation. The caution in my voice is because we're talking about injecting regulation into the free market. At what size? How do you define that institutional buyer? At what size? So we're not cutting out the small investors that have built up a nice inventory for themselves of rental properties that are good mom and pop operators. We're constantly evaluating what policies are done across the country, what is right for Arizona, because what works in Georgia may not work here. But we're seeing some really good ideas about how do we get actual Arizonans into the house that they want before a all cash institutional buyer, 20% over market, comes in and it's like, poof, it's gone. So that's a big part of the conversation for sure, because I know that it's frustrated agents, and more importantly, I know it's frustrated Arizonans.
There's a cycle to our cycles. Excuse me. And since I got my license in 91 here in Phoenix, I've lived through 3 of them. And we're going through that commodity reset cycle right now, which is about an every 30-year cycle. And that's really why our grandparents could buy a house that's 2,000 square feet for $16,000, earning, 75 cents an hour, with gas at 20 cents a gallon and bread at 5 cents a loaf, and today it's what it is today, but it's still 38 to 45% of our income. It really hasn't changed. The numbers have changed, but the percentage of our income hasn't really changed. And we call that affordability, right? Yep. And so the concerns that I have is when I see a photo of, the, out in Washington right now, I think it was on the Memorial Monument area, where they have these prefab homes that are being built, and there's, again, I'm not picking on the manufactured home society, but I don't think any of us desire to necessarily live in a manufactured home unless we have to. So, excuse me, Matt, to your point.
Unless you're from Georgia.
So to your point, what we're worried about is first-time home buyers in workforce housing. So, a little bit like San Diego, get a $600,000, 2,000 square foot home. This is back 20 years ago. And people had to drive to Chula Vista to be able to afford to live. And, and now at $5 a gallon, well, if that becomes the new norm, they're not going to be able to afford to take that drive. Yep. So this is the kinds of things that smart growth and plans and tax base, being able to make sure you have companies and corporations that are coming in that are paying that tax break. Those are the things that I think about when I think about the real estate industry. I'm not trying to covet our MLS or anything like that. I'm trying to make houses be part of that movement that keeps homeowners, keeps citizens in homes and make them affordable.
Well, and I've been really interested to watch what manufactured housing looks like and how it's innovating and evolving. And I think one of the key aspects for offsite construction is the lack of labor that's out there. Mm-hmm. When you talk about Prescott, you talk about Sholo, Yuma, they just need bodies down there. And so when you have them in a centralized location, like maybe the Valley or other, manufacturing hubs, it does provide us an opportunity to start building houses and get it to the places that we need. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, what the, integrity of those products delivered are, because we've seen a lot of, things built in the past. But, one of the other bills we passed this year was HB 2101, in working part of a coalition of our utility providers. It's a state preemption preventing a deregulated utility market, meaning that we're not going to have more power companies coming into the state trying to sell you power. And that's really important because in states like California and Texas, that's part of the problem that we've seen with rolling blackouts, unreliable grids, higher utility rates. It's something that we have, especially with monsoon season coming. We've got to keep our utilities organized, affordable, and reliable, especially with 113 degrees yesterday, 14. It felt like 150.
I don't know.
All right. Well, we started out talking about, when we hear the word, government affairs, we think politics. I want to get into rate pack because, rate pack is something that I'm very passionate about because, when you start rolling out names of bills, HB this, da 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 da. I just, I want to stick a shrimp fork in my eyeball because,
Sorry, second nature.
No. I don't want to read that stuff.
Yep.
I do not want to take the time to read it all, to be an activist for it, to be down, in the governor's office. No desire. This is not what I signed up to do. And that really, in essence, almost everybody listening to this doesn't want to do that. But this is the stuff that's going on 24/7. This is why we have AAR. This is the types of stuff that you are working on, Matt. So talk about politics. One of the things that people get really up in arms with because they just don't have the ability to remove emotion from their mouth is sometimes you guys will support a candidate that's on the different side of the aisle than I'm at. And sometimes you'll be supporting a candidate on my side of the aisle. And you made the comment before we started this for you guys, it's not about the candidate. It's about the policies and you're supporting the candidates that's going to be, give us the best position as policies as far as being real estate agents and homeowners. So with all that, talk about rate pack.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, it's the Realtors of Arizona Political Action Committee. And when I moved to Arizona almost 9 years ago now, I asked quickly, who are the major players in town? Who's leading? And time again, I heard Arizona Realtors because their members are involved and they've got a lot of money. And, our advocacy takes, and I joke all the time, it's not all steak dinners and martinis.
Well, I would like to show up to one of those. I've got a couple recommendations if my fellow agents are buying.
Is far from steak 44. But what it's about policy, and it's about where our elected officials fall on our key pillars. Making sure that they're educated and have the opportunity to vote with us, and then scoring those legislators, understanding their voting history. How are we building a relationship? What are they doing to help advance our key issues that are set forth in our legislative policies? So I'll back up real quick. It's the Realtors of Arizona Political Action Committee. When you pay your dues. You often see that little $30 is your fair share. You have the opportunity to opt out. I strongly suggest you don't, because
Yep.
I and my team at the Arizona Realtors are working really, really hard for you. And then more importantly, when you invest that $30, 20% staying in your community. If you're a Phoenix Association of Realtors, Scottsdale, We Serve, whatever it may be, that's helping those government affairs directors work with the mayor, work with the city council, fighting a sign ordinance, making sure that you guys have the ability to do business at every level. And then 30% is going to NAR to help our efforts in DC. 50% stays in the state, and it's really important that we maintain that influence for the big fights. Politics is more important, more expensive than ever. And like real estate, we're a data-driven, industry. It's a political science. And so when we're, doing polling, when we're trying to get mailers out to folks to educate them on issues, when we're getting research done, all of that takes money. And then building those relationships with our champions, whether it's Representative Justin Wilmot this year on HB 2172, passing legislation to allow licensees to hire other licensees as W-2s. We call it the Teams Bill, making sure that we are in good standing with the law, with Department of Real Estate, so you guys can go out and do business. That is what our political advocacy is about. And I can tell you, it's not smoke-filled rooms. It is just straightforward business. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
So, so Michael, you brought up in the very beginning that, we sell real estate. That's our bag. We're not really, although we're worried about policies and we're worried about homeownership and private property rights, we don't want to read the bill, the 4,000-page bill. So we have the advocates. So Matt, I'd like you to share with everybody. I know, obviously some of the reasons why when I walk into a room and I'm having conversations with people and I'm talking about national flood insurance, how we're constantly kicking that can down the road, or we're talking about other issues that are at the federal level or maybe the state level, I'm getting that information not because I read 4,000 pages of bills every week. I'm getting that information because I signed up for the Realtor Party. I signed up, which is not a red or a blue. It's a red, white, blue. It's all about homeownership. I'm getting information from AAR about what's going on in my state. And you're delivering, you specifically and your team are delivering me talking points. So when I go out to have a conversation, I'm not saying why you need to hire Todd. Well, first of all, you can't, because I don't do day-to-day real estate anymore. But, I'm not, but even when I was doing day-to-day real estate by state, I did the same thing. So where can people go to what are the places they can go for national news, from NAR, Realtor Party, or from AAR through RAPAC, or from the Department of Real Estate? These are the places that share that information with us.
Yep. So I do, during the legislative session, I do a weekly update, legislative update through The Voice. But that can also be found on our website, aaronline.com. But it's, and then there's national news at the National Association's website. It's an honor to do my job, because we really are a member-led organization. From our president Gary Nelson out of Flagstaff, my primary committee chair, who is a West USA part of the family, Susan Herber. When we go to develop our legislative policies, we have our Realtor Caucus. I encourage you all to come. It's August 31st at the Scottsdale Plaza. We'll be blasting out emails and putting things on social media. We review those new ideas. It goes before our Legislative and Political Affairs Committee. It goes before our Executive Committee, and ultimately our Board of Directors. So I'm here to lead your political advocacy, your strategy. But when it comes to the real estate industry and needs, you guys are the experts. I want to hear from you, and it's just a pleasure to be where I'm at.
Well, Matt, thank you. This was very insightful, and really, the big takeaway that I hope everybody gets is, make your contribution to RAPAC, because you guys are doing what I don't want to do. I'm sure you hear this all the time, but I really wish I could grow a mustache like that. I know Nick's thinking the same thing.
The whole thing. That's all I'm listening.
It's amazing.
Well, and with a recent trend out there, I had it before the Top Gun movie.
All right, we leave everybody with the quote of the day. The question isn't who is going to let me, it's who is going to stop me.
That's for you, Mike.
All right, appreciate everybody joining us today. Go out and sell a home.